Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to A Place in the Sun live digital event. And welcome to our French masterclass and this session, which we're focusing on everything you need to know about relocating to France. So we're going to be looking at your tax and financial considerations, getting residency, and all the paperwork and the protocols involved with a successful move to France. My name is Richard Way. I'm an international property journalist and also former editor of A Place in the Sun, and I shall be chairing this session. And we're lucky to have with us today three specialists who all work in the field of relocating to France. Two of them are financial experts, and they work for tax and financial advisory firms, and the other one is Verity, who is more involved with the lifestyle and logistics and everything you need to know about when you move and relocate to France. So what I will do is I'll let each of them introduce themselves in a second, and they'll tell you a bit about their company and the history of it and the services, the specific services that they offer. And then we'll go straight into some questions. What I will say also is we do want questions from you. We've got these three people who've given up their time today, so let's fire a load of questions at them, and hopefully we can all learn from other people's questions and the answers. If you would use your Q&A icon facility on your desktop to ask questions, and then I'll then read and filter them through to different people. And I'm going to drop this in now because you've got a whole session then to wish her happy birthday, but it is Verity's birthday. So even a bigger thank you for giving up an hour or so today. But okay, we'll start with you, Verity. Just tell us a bit about yourself. Thanks.
Okay, there's no pressure, is there, when you describe it as a masterclass? I'm already feeling the pressure. Okay, so what with that, and then say, give us a potted history of your time in France. It makes you realise how old you are. So thank you for that as well. Okay, so my name is Verity Reeve. I've actually been involved with all things French related for about the last 20 years. Our original business started in 2000, when my mum came over to France, bought a property. She was an executive in the UK. When she got back to the UK, she thought there's bound to be someone who'd be prepared to look after it as a second home. And she actually found that there was a choice of nobody. So she made herself redundant, moved to France and set up an organisation called Les Bons Voisins, which was the first national network of property managers. So she actually franchised that opportunity all across France. We've since sold that business. It's not something we're involved in. And there are other national networks of property managers, but they were all originally started and were trained by us. So we know they're good. But like I say, we've sold that business. And in 2012, we diversified into a state agency. And then we diversified again into Relocate France. And we cover all sorts of things. It's very difficult to put us in a particular pigeonhole, because from helping people set up the franchise and also assisting people with purchasing houses, we realised that there was a real gap in the market for people who are coming to resettle with their own business ideas, as well as people who want help with business, who, after the estate agency role is done, there isn't necessarily any support out there for them. So we aim to bridge that middle gap. Now, my specialism normally when I'm talking with a place in the sun is people that are looking to set up a business. So primarily, I help with people setting up businesses, but I also help, in this day and age, with the carte séjour and just general relocation. So, we've moved on, we've diversified, and I'm really happy that anything kind of gets thrown at me, because unlike my two other lovelies on the panel who have specialisms, I'm really not that special. So feel free to throw whatever questions you want at me, really. So I'm here with two hats on, one as an estate agent, but primarily the Relocate France.
Okay, you are special, Verity. Shabir and Susanna Hallam have both wished you happy birthday already. So
thank you.
We are getting questions already, so let's move on. Robert, would you tell us about yourself, please?
Yeah, hello, my name's Robert Kent. I'm a founding director of Kentingtons. We've been around for almost 15 years now. I've been giving advice for a lot longer than that. So, but we specialize in giving tax and investment advice to people moving to France. So people who are moving want to understand their tax position, want to understand the financial consequences of their move. We're the company that they may talk to. We are registered in France as conseiller gestion de patrimoine, which means that we are registered and authorized by the French fiscal authorities here, which makes us a bit unique compared to many other advisors. I won't mention Rob, but yeah, because obviously he's extremely good too. But the point is that we are specialized in France. We're not trying to be an international. Their focus is France, which is a very specialist sort of area.
And whereabouts are you, Robert, in France?
We're based in the southeast of France. So, but we cover the whole of France. We actually cover the whole of the UK, France. We go and visit our clients wherever they want us to see them. So we're all over the place. But we're lucky enough to be in the southeast, where it's currently 32 degrees, so quite a warm day. So,
very nice. You're in Brittany, aren't you, Verity? Is that right?
Yes, we have sunshine up here.
Okay, good. Yep. Rob, if you'd like to tell us about yourself and Blevins.
Absolutely, Richard. Yeah, good afternoon. Well, I'm here in the southeast, not that far away from Robert. Blevins Franks has been advising British expatriates who leave the UK and move to France, Spain, Portugal, Cyprus, and Malta now for just over 45 years. My specialist is France. I've been here now for 23 years. And Blevins Franks take people on the journey of moving from the UK to France and then across borders as well, because people, once they arrive in France or Spain or Portugal, it doesn't necessarily mean that they stay there. So where Blevins Franks fits into the marketplace is that we specialise in the cross-border advice, making sure that your affairs are correctly, strategically set up, shall we say, for your move to whichever of those European countries you move to.
Great, thanks very much. Right, let's go straight in with moving and residency. One of the most important things you need to consider when you are going to settle legally in France. If we'll start with you, Rob, could you just update us on the situation now with people moving to France during the transition year? I know they've been introducing a new online system. There's a new card, I believe, that you should be applying for. And also, you've got until the 1st of July next year to actually apply or receive it. Is that right? Can you just bring some clarity to all these stories?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, British citizens have been able to move to France without any problems. In fact, for the last few years, you haven't really needed to obtain a residency card. Once the UK left the EU, as you said a few minutes ago, Richard, we're now in this transition period, which obviously everyone, I'm sure, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last 4 years, knows it's now actually going to come to an end in just over 4 months' time at the end of the year. Now, at that point, or up until that point, British citizens who are living in France, they will retain their European citizens' rights. What they will have to do is they will have to apply for a card of residence. It's actually going to be known as a withdrawal agreement residence permit. Now that's slightly different to what went before. Every single British citizen who's living in France, unless they try to apply for the previous version of the card between I think about October last year and January this year when the withdrawal agreement was signed, everyone will have to apply for this card. Now, they don't have to apply by the end of the year because the application was due to go online and open from July. Now, because of the pandemic, that was pushed back. I actually did check this morning to see if it had been pushed back again. And all I can tell you is that the French government website this morning was still saying it will go live on the 1st of October. So from the 1st of October, every Brit in France needs to apply for the card, and they have until the end of June next year to make the application. Now, clearly, if you don't get round to applying for the card until next year, and actually we've then gone past the end of the transition period, you really need to make sure that if you've only arrived this year, that it's known that you've arrived, yeah? Because there's quite a lot of people, as we've come towards the end of the deadline, have decided that actually this is where they want to be. And so for those people, what we're saying is, look, you need to take certain steps. You've got to actually show that you actually do live in France. So you've got to prove what's known as stable residence. Now, one of the things that you can do is, for those people who already have a property in France and you're going to move to live in that property, maybe get in touch with the insurance company and tell them that you're here, because there is a difference with the insurance between when it's a secondary residence or a holiday home and when it's your main residence. Lots of people who've lived in the UK, it's actually not that easy to do, actually. But if you're living in the UK or you're living somewhere else and you have your utility bill sent to you at your address outside of France, even though the utility bill might say it's for a property in France, it actually needs to be sent to that address. So it's good that people go along and get hold of EDF or something like this and say, look, I'm definitely here. And then it's drawing that line in the sand. Anyone who can join the French healthcare system, they need to join before the end of the year. And importantly as well, maybe what you need to do is when you leave the UK, you need to tell HMRC that you've left. And again, it's another indication that you've arrived, because it is quite difficult from a tax point of view in France to actually notify the authorities. Because if you go to a local tax office and tell them, there isn't a form that you fill in now for the current year. The forms for French tax are issued after the end of the year. And after the end of the year will be beyond the transition period. So actually, knock on the door of the local tax office and say you're here. But actually, all these little steps I've just mentioned will start to prove that you've got what we describe as stable residence.
And the key thing is you're doing those things before the end of the year, because
Absolutely.
You can't, although you can apply for your card up until the end of June, you have to have been living and starting to establish yourself before the end of the year.
Absolutely, before the end of the transition period, yeah.
And Helen Pickles has asked, this is all tied in with this, she completes before the end of the year their UK property, but they're contracted to work in the UK until next summer. But is there any way they can secure their pre-Brexit rights or their residency, without actually moving to France? Or her husband has the option to move prior to Christmas. So that would be the answer to that then, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very difficult to have a full-time job in the UK and actually be permanent resident in France, because the two don't go together.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the things they could do, and lots of people at the moment are working online, working from home. We've come across quite a lot of people. And the pandemic is actually helping them to move, because before they were, let's say, at home in the UK, not going into the office, let's say into London. And quite a lot of these people now are finding that they can actually be in France and do exactly the same job. It gets more complicated when you then start talking about employment contracts and then French social charges and everything else, but it is possible.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Rob. Verity, looking at the whole process, a lot of our listeners probably haven't found a property yet, but they might still be trying. I know we've got COVID going on as well. They might be intending to be settled and living in France by the end of the year. I mean, realistically, is there still time? I'm drawing on your experience as an agent as well, to actually get out to France, find a property, complete the transaction, and start settling there before the end of the year.
It will be for some people. For most people, maybe not. Which unfortunately, with a lot of things that I talk about, I will probably leave people with more questions than I do answers. The thing is, for us, we are a small, independently run estate agency. So from that point of view, you know, just the process of buying a property is possible before the end of the year for some people. Now, we've seen a huge increase. We have a YouTube channel. We put nearly all our properties on the YouTube channel. And I've got 8 properties going through at the moment that have gone under offer in the last 6 weeks where the people haven't seen them. It's all been done with YouTube and virtual viewings. But so for some people it will be possible, but people have to have a plan. And there is, you know, we are very lucky because we are a small estate agency. We work with a very good preferred notaire. Now, for example, I went to a pre-sale contract this week where my notaire that we're working with for our purchaser is happy for the completion to take place on the 30th of October. It's Friday the 30th of October. But the vendor's notaire, which the vendor chose to use, which is their wish, is refusing to do the completion before the 9th of December. So it's very different depending on who you're actually working with. And as a purchaser, I don't think sometimes the purchaser understands how much power is with them because they're paying the fees. If they're going through an agent, they're paying the agency fees. 9 out of 10 times, they're paying the notaires, or they are paying the notaires fees. Sometimes they pay the agency fees. So, you know, the purchaser really does have the power here, but they have to know what they want.
Yeah.
They have to know where they want. They have to, you know, have everything in place.
Yeah.
So they have to have all their paperwork in place. You know, there has to be a proactive agent, a proactive notaire. There is also something that not a lot of purchasers seem to be aware of, which is something called SAFA, spelt safer, pronounced SAFA, and it's almost the layman's term to say is it's like the land registry that we're used to having in the UK, and they have to do right of preemption checks on pretty much every property. Now, the right of preemption is, does the farmer want the land? Does the commune want the house? Now, of course, it would make sense if these rights of preemption checks were done at the time the property went on the market, but they're not. They're not done until the dossier is with the notaire and the 10-day calling off period is finished. So there are, you know, there are some things you can't hurry up because the 10-day calling off period in itself cannot be hurried. It's a legal requirement. SAFA is a 2-month process.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the 12th of September now, and people want to complete by the 31st of December. However, if you are prepared to pay like €160, you can speed the SAFA process up to 1 month.
Yeah.
So we're saying to people that are buying through us at the moment, they've got until about the 30th of September. We've spoken to our notaire about it, and she can guarantee that as long as the buyers will pay for SAFA, have their documentations in place, then we can get completion by the end of the year. But like I say, that's different. We are just a little estate agency, so we work with little local people. So our diagnostics technician is on board with us. People also have to think about what's important to them. If they're looking to bring pets over with them before the 31st of December, just a random thing. But if you haven't started the process for the pet passport, which is about a 4-month process now in time for the new checks come the 1st of December, that may not be possible. So again, on separate Zoom sessions, I'm happy if anyone wants to talk about this in more depth. So that's a really long-winded way of saying, yes, it could be possible for some people.
But really you need to check that your agent and has got the right contacts, and if you like,
and it has to be proactive. And at this time of year, you know, you will have vendors who want to complete before the 1st of January, because whoever owns the property on the 1st of January is liable for the tax for the following year for the property. So you find you have 2 sets of parties at the moment. It's gelling quite well who want to get things on, but it all does depend about the official that you work with. And again, as a purchaser, remember, you don't have to go with your vendor's notaire. You can choose to go with another notaire, but unfortunately, as in the situation I explained this week, it's the vendor's notaire that drives the sale.
Right.
So it's all things to take into consideration. So yes, it is possible for some people.
Even more reason to have people like yourselves
Yeah.
helping you complete and
Absolutely.
make it happen. Great, thank you very much, Verity. Robert, we've talked about the residency side and just looking a bit more closely at the tax side now. So we've talked about how you become a formal, a legal resident. Obviously, you need to register for tax in France as well. How does it actually work? Do you have to, and when do you become liable to do that? Is it immediately you enter the country and you need to think about tax? And we've got a question as well. This goes back to Rob, tied into this. Someone who's moving to France next month. It's from Gillian Ratcliffe. She says, she seems we have to do a UK tax return at the end of this financial year and also a French one to evidence we've been taxed in the UK, I'm assuming now, this year. After that, when are we fully resident permanently? Will we only do a French tax return? So I'm just trying to clear the sort of haze between when you make your first tax return and you're liable to do that and when you actually arrive in France.
Yeah, it's a complicated one because obviously there are 2 tax years that aren't the same. So we have January to December in France, and we have April to April in the UK. And so there is a point where you're reporting in both countries. So you move to France and you're physically there, but as Rob said earlier, there's not immediately something to sign. There's nothing to actually do straight away. So you may tell the UK that you've moved to France, but actually they won't believe you. And they won't believe you until you complete your first French tax declaration. Now, when you're completing your first tax declaration, another form that you'll get them to stamp, and this is the French tax office, is the France individual, which is a UK HMRC form. And when they get that gets stamped by the tax office, is sent back to the UK, and only at that point will the UK accept that you are no longer a resident of the UK, and they will then reimburse you anything that you have overpaid. And it's likely that there will be something overpaid because they've carried on treating you as a UK resident. So you can fill out a P85 for notifying HMRC you've left, and they say that's fine, but we're going to keep on asking you to do tax returns, we'll keep on deducting tax until you're out of the UK system. And they won't believe that until they have something from the French tax office.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask you this now because it's related to tax and salaries in the UK. It's from, oh, he's anonymous. I'm a company director and I'll continue to be after moving to France. It's a company director in the UK. I'll be paid a UK salary and a dividend in sterling. Apart from exchange rates, what other advice would you give this person? I guess tax is a key one.
Yeah, I mean, if there's employed income in the UK and the activity takes place in the UK, then the UK carries on taxing it. So under the double tax treaty between the UK and France, I'll say what voice is going. Under the tax treaty between the UK and France, employed income are currently being assessed in the UK and taxed in the UK. What does change is that it's also being assessed in France. And in France, it gets 100% credit. So it's assessed in France, but it's not actually taxed. So what happens is it goes through the computations in France, and they use it to assess your overall tax band, but it doesn't actually get taxed in France. So it stays taxed in the UK.
Okay, thanks. I just want to clear up, there's been a few questions going back to the whole residency thing about renting. Verity, maybe you can answer this. Is it okay to have a rental contract as proof of living in France rather than obviously having bought a property?
Yeah, it is if it's a proper rental contract.
Right.
And you have to be a little bit wary of some people who are offering their gîtes up as long-term rents over the winter, which tends to be what happens, you know, when the holiday season has started. So it really has to be a proper rental contract. And again, ideally, that utility bills for a rental property can be put in the name of the person that's renting it. strangely enough, an EDF bill opens all sorts of doors over here. If you happen to have your name and address on it, I have 3 people's names and addresses on my EDF bill because 3 people live here. You know, and it's just taken as read. So it does have to be a property rental contract. It's a good idea for lots of people who don't know where they want to be to actually rent, because it gives them freedom. But it has to be a proper official rental contract, and I would advise that they have the utilities, or at least the EDF bill.
Get some bills, and then
most rental properties will have a separate meter. It will only be sometimes those properties that are in a gîte complex where it may not be possible to have a separate electric meter to be put into the name. So yes, you know, it is one option, but it has to be an official. And
will it have to be for a minimum term? I'm thinking 6 months or 12 months.
It's a little bit shaky. It always used to be like 1 year or 3 years, and then there's different terms on the rental contract depending on whether it's furnished or unfurnished. So if it's an unfurnished rental, it's better for the tenant. If it's a furnished rental, it's better for the landlord. So it always used to be a minimum sort of 12 months. There may be 6 months out there now, but there's not something that I frequently come across as rentals for 6 months. Normally 12 months or 3 years, if it's official.
Anything? Does anyone else want to add to that? Do you come across this, Rob? The renting side, is it?
No. I mean, there's a lot of people at the moment who, as I said before, want to arrive before the end of the transition period. But actually, you know, as Verity said, one of the things that we say, not just the people who are moving to France for the first time, but also quite a lot of people who've had holiday homes in France.
Yeah.
It's very different if you've got a holiday home and then you go and make it your permanent home. The amount of times that people do that, and then they realise that when they're coming in the summer and it's quite busy, that's great, but they arrive here and then they get to mid-January and the laundry is even shut until March. And then they start moving around. And so I apologise in advance to Verity here, but you know, we do say to people, if you're not definite about where you're going to live, actually it is a good idea to go and rent somewhere for a while and just see if you like living there, because you've got to live through all the different seasons to really understand the place.
I absolutely agree with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to give the impression that I disagree with renting, because I absolutely don't. I've worked with too many people who have put too many eggs in one basket and then not liked it. I mean, I live in Brittany. They close. Brittany closes in October and it reopens in March. You know, it's someone's turned the electric off. So renting is a good idea for those people that aren't certain on where they want to be. It's quite interesting. I can just see someone's asking the question: is renting a gîte not a proper rental? Not if it's referenced, not if the Mary has it registered as a gîte. No, it's not a proper rental, because it can only be insured as a holiday home. So
yeah, good point there. Yeah. Thank you very much. Just looking now a bit more about the financial services and the advice that people like Blevins and Kensington's offer. Rob, I mean, I know you have thresholds or criteria for how you can help different people. How do people know, listening this afternoon, that they require someone like your services? Do they need to have a complicated portfolio of assets or different pensions that they've accumulated over a career? Or where's the sort of breaking ground where you think they really are going to benefit from your advice?
I think that anyone who's moving will benefit from advice. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, it obviously gets more complicated the more assets you've got, and it needs more detailed planning. But I mean, if we go back just for a moment to where Blevins Frank started 45 years ago, we were actually accountants in London, okay, and we were approached by, it was actually a couple who were moving to Spain, and at the time their accountants were a company now that's not around, it's been amalgamated into one of the big four now, but it was a company called Coopers and Lybrand. And they went to Coopers and Lybrand in the UK, and Coopers did a fantastic synopsis of their situation in the UK, and they actually handed them over then to their Spanish operation. And they also did a really great job of coming up with a synopsis of the situation in Spain. But nobody at the time was standing in the middle and saying, look, if you do this, 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 and this, you put yourself in the best position. And to be honest with you, Levis Franks is still doing that now. The only difference is we're doing it to people who are moving to France, Portugal, Malta, and Cyprus as well. So I think that, yes, it's very easy. Well, put it this way, I don't think you'll be moving to France if you haven't got any money at all. It's not something that people do without any money. You know, you don't go live in a new country without having something. So I think if you've got finances and you are a certain age in life, you need to take advice because it isn't the same. Robert was talking earlier about the tax situation. You know, income tax is called the same thing in both countries, but actually how it works and how it's calculated is completely different. And people arrive thinking that income tax is the same in France as it is in the UK, as they do with capital gains tax and all the taxes. So I think you obviously, to take advice, you pay for the fees for giving the advice, and you need to have some assets. But I do think that proper advice is crucial. And I think that beyond the transition period, it's going to become even more important. Because whereas people in the past could just simply move to France, now they're going to have to take a number of steps and make sure that they've got T's crossed and I's dotted to make sure that the move is an effective and appropriate one.
And I'm right in saying timing is important. It's a lot harder to restructure your financial affairs if you've already moved to France and you're then tax resident there. It's a lot easier to do it before you make the move.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it necessarily is more difficult afterwards. What I would say is that you possibly could miss opportunities. Yeah. Because there are different tax systems, as I said, between the two countries. And there are things that you should do on one side of the channel, and there's things you should do when you get on the other side. And it's the same also with people who are going back. There are things that you need to sort out in France before you go back, and there are other things which you should delay until you've actually gone back to the UK. I mean, strangely for me, one of the things that I've not been able to understand yet in the past 4 years is actually Brexit has actually driven more people, or not more, but certainly quite a lot of people back to the UK. It's been the catalyst to go back, which I find quite amazing. But it has been. So we've also been involved in the return, because if you've got your affairs arranged appropriately for France, it won't necessarily be appropriately arranged for the UK. So it works both ways.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You made reference there to some of the different taxes that France has. Is it fair to say, Robert, that taxation is more complicated and even more expensive in France? You've got social charges, wealth tax, but if you're talking to people like yourselves, you can actually still lower the annual tax bill for your clients. I mean, what's a sort of typical situation?
I'm going to start by shooting myself in the foot a bit, actually, because we come across many married couples moving to France who actually just move and actually pay less income tax than they would in the UK. And it's actually a real shock to many people. They say, well, surely it's more expensive for me in France. I'll do the computation for them, and they're shocked to learn that for some people it's 20 to 30% less than they were paying in the UK. And obviously it depends on your situation. But you know, France is not the high tax place that people think it is. I do think it is a high tax place if you're going to run a business or a company. But if you're retiring, it's not a bad place. So I saw Verity shaking her head there. And the point is, she's right too, because it depends on the size and scale of the company. Actually, if you're setting up as a micro entrepreneur, very simple, very low tax, in many ways, France can be good for that too. So the point I'm trying to make is that many people make an assumption that France is complicated and you'll pay a lot more. I think the point is to know what you're doing, that you have to understand the mechanisms that are available to you and have those well explained to you. And that's really important, to keep things simple. And it's taking good advice that gets you there very quickly. because the point is that it is a very wide system and it could be complicated if you're trying to navigate it yourself. But so I don't think it's a high tax place necessarily. Now, of course, if you've got someone helping you navigate it, then you can turn what's good into great. And we come across lots of clients who are completely stunned that they are significantly better off. They just can't believe it. I've sat in a meeting with a fiscal lawyer with someone next to me just laughing, just saying, I just can't believe how much money I'm going to save by moving to France. And everyone kept on telling me how scary it was. And in so many cases, it's just not true. So yeah, it's a myth.
And it probably is a good time just to touch on this thing that they have out there, assurance vie, because you hear it a lot in financial circles, and it's something we don't have in the UK. And I believe it's a sort of tax wrapper or where you can dump investments and you get benefits, and it's something that a lot of expats use when they move to France. Do you want to just run through that quickly?
Yeah, the point to start off is that assurance vie, like you said, is a wrapper, and that's exactly what it is. Lots of people think that it's an investment structure, and it's a lot more than that. I basically view an assurance vie as more akin to a trust in the UK. Now, trusts, of course, don't exist in France, and the French actually have punitive measures for anyone who sets up a trust whilst living in France. 60% penalty, in fact, so very, very heavy penalties. But actually, if you look at what a trust is, it's assets placed outside the estate where you can appoint and name beneficiaries and get out of things like succession law, get out of inheritance tax, appoint who you're leaving things to, all the same mechanisms that we are used to in the UK that are provided to us by trusts. So it's a lot more than it is in the UK. It has all sorts of benefits and pluses. Now, one of the main ones, of course, is that when you're drawing money from an assurance vie, most of what you take is deemed as return of capital and therefore deemed by the tax office to be not taxable. So most of what you draw, so even if you are drawing everything it is earning, most of that income will be deemed non-taxable. And that's where it gets interesting. So you can have one assurance vie in France, inside France, and there are people who use that. Some people use structures that are outside France. Whatever people use, it has to be one that's compliant with French tax in order to get the benefits. So it has to have what they call French fiscal representation. So what that means is that the provider can do the tax computations that the French tax authorities require. So in order to get all these benefits, so just any kind of assurance vie, so I've seen people take out a life insurance product in the UK. It's not going to work. It's going to be problematic. So the point is to understand the protection measures behind it and how well it works. But so an assurance vie is not carte blanche the answer. It has to be the right one, and that's very important.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sure either you or Rob can give more information on that to individual clients as and when, but it's something that people should know about. We're getting questions about healthcare. We're going to get to that, and we've also had a question that fits in with where I wanted to take the conversation next anyway, and that's from Rebecca Golas. Is the auto entrepreneur system still going? And this is something that you help people with, Verity. You said before that you help Brits set up businesses, help them set up all the necessary paperwork, forms.
Okay, I'm going to condense this down because I know we've already been told how much time we've got, and okay, you're going to cut me off because we know I
start doing that. You know
yeah,
why?
Exactly. If I magically disappear, we know why. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. Because I have to say, I was shaking my head when Robert said something about tax. Can I just say to you, Robert is the person I go to for all tax-related things, other than the micro-entreprise side of things, which I kind of know quite well. Right, micro-entreprise, auto-entrepreneur, they're kind of one and the same thing. They changed names a few years ago, but effectively everyone's talking about the same thing. They're very popular. Yes, they're still going. Yes, they're a very good way into the healthcare system. Okay. it's quite interesting in France. It's the easiest way of self-employment, and it's very rarely the wrong way to start, because what you can do in France with business is you can start at the bottom and you can work your way up the different levels, but what you can't do is you can't necessarily work your way down the levels. So it's a very good place to start. And like I say, it's a very simple system. You don't have to employ an accountant. You don't have to keep receipts. It's best practice that you do, but you don't have to. You do have to have a separate bank account for it. 50% of your turnover is considered to be costs. So therefore 50% is considered to be income. And it's very much pay as you go system. So it used to be the taxation or the cotisation payments. Now the cotisation payments aren't to be confused with tax payments. Cotisation payments are your healthcare payments, your pension payments, you know, a bit like your NI contributions that you would have in the UK. Cotisations are when you're dealing with the micro-entreprise system, are actually on a honesty basis, if you like. Every month or every quarter you'll be sent a letter on email by URSSAF, who are the people that collect it, and you honestly tell them what you've earned that year, and then you say, oh, that month or that quarter, and then you send them a check for approximately 5.5%. It used to be much higher, but a few years ago they changed it because under the French government wanted to get more people into the self-employment scheme. Because I think the thing is, when it comes to working in France, I've come across a lot of people that go, well, when I turn up in France, I'm prepared to do anything. There isn't necessarily anything for the expat community to do, because unless you're fluent in French or have a specific niche skill, unemployment in France was always high before the pandemic. It's higher now. So self-employment is really the best system to go down. I took someone to the local Chambre de Commerce yesterday to register their business. They're expected to have their SIRIT number, which is the 12-digit number that you should have by next Wednesday, hopefully. Because once you have that SIRIT number, it shows that you've got a registered business in France. Anyone can take that SIRIT number, they can put it onto the computer. I think it's 13 digits, not 12. They can put it onto the computer and they can see what you're registered to do. Right. So it is very different over here. You can't kind of say, oh, I'm a builder, and then register yourself as a hairdresser. Okay. The French like to put people in boxes. So you can't just go, hi, I'm here, I'm self-employed, I'll do whatever. They like to put you in nice little boxes. And it means that people can check that you're actually registered to do what you're saying you're going to do. And also the fact that you have the correct insurance. But by registering a business, it will generate a social security number. And of course, a social security number generates your carte vitale. And then trust me, we all have a party when your carte vitale turns up, because it can be anything between 3 months to 18 months, depending on what official you're dealing with. So they have increased the earning limits for auto entrepreneurs. Everyone got very excited a few years ago because they effectively doubled the amount of money an auto entrepreneur could earn. So you can now earn up to 72,500 euros per year. However, what they didn't increase was the TVA. Now, TVA is VAT. There are two things in life you can't avoid. One is taxes and the other one is death. Okay, and the French, they kind of get that with how Robert has been saying about taxation. TVA still kicks in at around 33,000 euros, and it's 20% that they charge with TVA. So you have to have some business planning when that comes around, because obviously if you've been quite happily earning up until that point, and then you have to start paying TVA, it's unlikely that you as a business can absorb that 20% taxation, or that actually you can pass that on to your clients. So, it's a huge subject. Shut up, Verity. Okay.
No,
I can talk more.
No, it's all very useful. I wanted to just quickly ask before we move, I want to just touch on healthcare because we've had questions. So what very quickly, typical businesses or lines of work that clients of yours who go on the auto entrepreneur, what are they doing? What is it?
Okay, can I just say, teaching English as a foreign language is out. Okay, if that's a business idea,
no.
got it covered. All different sorts of things, you know, and I'm happy to talk to people about their business ideas. Gîtes tends to be a common one. I can bore people to tears with that, about the pros and cons of that. My specialism is property management, and I can explain why there's core capital investment against actually looking after other people's homes. People have a very mixed bag, but those seem to, the most common one is Gîtes.
Gîtes, yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Rob, can we, I want to talk about healthcare a bit, because we're getting questions, and it is one of the biggest concerns of people when they move, not just to France, but to any new country, and obviously with the whole Brexit situation. So can you just start by telling, currently, as things are, we're still in the transition period, and if you move to France, you retain rights. How do most people moving to France now, at this particular time, access healthcare, and when do you qualify for state healthcare? Do you need private cover? What does it depend on? What are the things?
All right. I mean, what I would say is that if you arrive in France and you have an occupation here in France, you'll be into the system, and therefore you'll be into the French health system via the social charges, which are deducted from your income. Now, if you then say, okay, well, the next set of people are maybe those people who retired here and it's pre-state retirement age, they've got two options. They can either self-insure with private medical insurance, and when you are applying for French residency, you're going to have to show the fact that you've actually got private medical insurance. Or they can actually contribute into a system which is known as the PUMA system. Now, in essence, the PUMA system, over the minimum threshold, it costs about 6.5% of your taxable income. Now, the crucial one, and it's very sort of transition, Brexit sensitive, this one, is lots of people have heard of S1s. Now, the S1 system, which it used to be called the E121, it gives you access to the French healthcare system. So therefore, if you are of retirement age in the UK and you're receiving a UK state pension, you can apply to the department in the UK that issues S1s. You go online to yougov.uk, there's an easy link there. You can then apply to get the S1. You submit that to the French health authorities, and you're then into the system. Now, what the UK has done at the moment is they've guaranteed and confirmed that anyone who has an S1 issued before the end of this year, they'll be in the system, and the UK will carry on reimbursing their health expenses beyond the end of the transition period. So from 2021 onwards. The problem we've got at the moment is that nothing has been said about what will happen after January. So if you're picking up your state, I had a situation only last week with a guy who is due to pick up his UK state pension in January next year. And that's after the end of the transition period. Yeah. At the moment, we're still waiting to find out what announcements are going to be made. The crucial one that we're also coming across is there's quite a lot of people who maybe have paid into the UK system in the past, and they may have very little by way of pension, and they actually haven't applied for it because I met a gentleman the other week who said to me, well, it won't even buy me a cup of coffee. Well, actually, the benefit of getting older in S1, because you've got that little amount that might just buy you a coffee, could actually pay for you to be in the French health system and actually save you paying for private medical insurance. You know, it can be reasonably cost effective when you are younger, shall we say. But if you're in France long term after you pass your state retirement age, you're then going to start paying for private medical insurance into your late 60s, 70s and beyond. It becomes a damn expensive exercise. So I think for anyone who's able to get hold of an S1 before the end of the year, I think it's one of the most crucial things anyone can do.
Yeah, very good point. And just on that, we've had a question from Rebecca Golas. Her husband is a pensioner, but I'm a fair way off that. So they moved to France this year with an S1. He'll be entitled to free healthcare. Will his wife, who's not yet eligible age?
Yes,
Yes,
she'll be
yes.
covered for his. Yeah.
Okay, well that's good. Another one about S1s. Joe, can you get an S1 if you're receiving ESA and off work for sickness reasons? So if you're getting certain benefits, I believe, get you an S1.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what.
Absolutely, yeah. The best thing is it can get really complicated. So if you go to the website that you can apply through, it gives you all the rules. You know, we haven't got time this afternoon to go through all the small rules because there are a lot. But it does take you on a step-by-step journey of making the application. So it's a really good site. And actually the people at the S1 issuing departments in the UK, they're really, really helpful. You know, they actually, if you ring them up, they won't issue S1s if you're not moving within a short period of time because they are really, really efficient. And it's a very good system.
And the other thing we should probably mention briefly, if we can, the TopUp system in France. It's not entirely free, is it, healthcare in France? And you hear this TopUp insurance mutuelle. Some people need it, some people don't. Can you just quickly mention how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's correct. Different healthcare requirements have got different contribution levels, i.e. that the system contributes to. But there is frequently a shortfall of how much you need to contribute. And you can get private medical insurance, but it isn't like maybe the private medical insurance you would expect in the UK, which is sort of full on, excuse me, I'm not advertising here, but Bupa or AXA or something like that. A mutuelle will just cover the difference. And there are actually different levels of the mutuelle. So some will cover 100% and some covers part of the amount that you pay. And if you speak to a French insurance broker, they will guide you on which cover is appropriate for you. And again, it's down to costs as well. Some people insure their health like they do their car. You know, some people choose to go third-party fire and theft. Some people have fully comp, and the choice of the mutuals is quite similar.
Yeah, I like the analogy. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Time is ticking. Verity, we said earlier that your services are quite broad when it comes to relocating. We've talked about healthcare, financial issues, residency. What else, what other aspects of relocating to France do you find you need to assist people with? What
don't I need to assist people with?
Or don't even, but yeah, or which things should people be most aware of?
There is so much. It's things you've got registering the business, the healthcare side of things. Obviously, you know, the can't be tell side of things, getting into that. People that are coming over with children, you know, with getting them into schools.
Pets.
The benefits are transferable. Bringing cars over, importing bees, all sorts of things. I think if you were to flip the question, what advice would I give people that are coming over, you know, about what they can concentrate their time in, and probably everyone on the panel would agree with this, is learning the language.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's very underestimated, and Robert has sat through a number of my talks and knows about my horrible experiences, about my lack of confidence in talking French for the first couple of years, and the amount of trouble it got me into, including telling the pompiers I was going to Birmingham to strip one night. It was my confidence that held me back, you know, with my French level. And also when you're bringing children over, which is a great concern, you know, people expect their children to go into the school and learn the language, but actually the parents need to take responsibility to learn the language as well. And particularly if one person speaks the language better than the other one, you'll find that one person ends up taking the strain, and that can be quite isolating. So yeah, there are so many different things that we end up advising on, from the weird and the wonderful to the mundane. And I'm very happy to have chats with anybody about any aspect of it at all, really.
Great, thank you. we've got time for one final question, and I'm going to fire this at Robert, if that's all right. We've had more than one person have been asking about this. You've got a couple. One of them is more than once it's been Irish, so they've got an EU passport. They're Irish national, and they've got a British spouse. What's the situation with moving to France? Does the British spouse automatically get all the rights with their EU?
Not automatically, no.
No.
I mean, the point is, it's like if you married a French national. Well, yes, it puts you up the scale, makes it easier because there's reasons for you to acquire nationality, but it doesn't actually mean you automatically get your hands on it. You know, I'm married to a French national. I don't automatically get a French passport. So,
in terms of residency, though, do you get the right to move to France regardless of what happens after Brexit, after the transition? If your partner has that right.
Well, the point is, we've never really seen anyone denied residency from anywhere. I mean, the point is, you know, before the EU existed and going back, I've actually never seen an American citizen, an Australian citizen actually told, no, you can't come to France. So, of course, most of the people we meet aren't a liability to the state. And that's quite an important point, is that it's important not to be a liability to the state, that you're not actually a weight around the cost of the country. But it's so rare that I've seen people told, no, you cannot enter this country. In fact, I've just never seen it. I've just not come across it. So in any anxiety that people are feeling that, well, you know, will they be allowed in? Well, the EU hasn't existed forever. And anyway, every country has its own rules on residency. So, you know, it's a lot less scary than people are saying, oh, well, they'll be allowed in. Actually, French rules for residency, as far as the EU is concerned, is one of the easiest of all the countries to gain residency. So, you know, if people can't get across before the end of this year, should they be panicking about whether they'll be allowed in? I would say no.
No. Brilliant. And that's a good note to end on, because we are running over time now. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope it's been useful and it's at least triggered some more questions, and you're going to have more questions, but each of the panelists are available to speak to and book appointments via their webpage on the Place in the Sun digital.co.uk site. So thank you very much. Robert, thank you for giving up your time. Verity, and to you as well, and happy birthday. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
And Rob, of course, as well. So wish you well, and thank you everyone for listening. And also, just to say, this session has been recorded and will be available on the website for you to look at later on as well. So if you've missed anything, you can go back and watch it. So thank you very much. Bye bye.